Welcome back, Blue Jay fans. This is season 2, episode 4 of the We Want More Vodcast.
Winds up, takes it, goes forward, scores another one for Hopkins.
The test was just called it right in there. Shot to goal right out in front. The Blue Jays
does not wear a brace. Never has shown any adverse effects. Harrison with it. Big shot. Scores! Kyle Harrison goes high. That's it. It's over. Johns Hopkins has won its ninth national championship.
All right, we are joined by Coach Peter Milliman. Coach, thanks for being with us today.
For sure. Thanks, guys.
All right, Coach. So looking back against UNC, got down 3-0 pretty early in the game. Took a quick timeout. What was the response? How did the guys come back from that slow start?
I think we responded the right way. We still needed to settle in and play a little bit better in certain areas, but we seemed to miss the first 57 seconds of the game because they scored pretty quickly. Obviously, they got a good opportunistic bunch and they took advantage of some mistakes, but we need to come out better than that for sure. We can't start a game and expect to be competitive throughout if we're not ready to go on the first whistle. So just get a chance to regroup and essentially restart. But I thought the guys responded. We worked our way back into a level score at some point, and I think 8-7 going into half. I mean, we definitely reacted the right way after that, but still wasn't the cleanest version of the game for sure. So I think that first minute was probably indicative of some mistakes that we were going to be prone to.
Yeah, Coach. And another, obviously, we spoke last week. Every week seems like a rivalry week and a big game against, I don't know, top 10, top 15 teams. After kind of a tough start, what did you see early on from them that really gave them a chance to jump on us?
From Carolina, you mean?
Yeah.
I think they played super aggressive. I think you really saw a posture from them that this was, opportunity for them to really make a statement with the first, high-end team that they'd gone against. And I don't want to take that away from us and say that we didn't have that same posture, but there was definitely an urgency from that end of the field. And everybody's going to know that there's some obvious emotions involved with Coach Petromalback and his son kind of leading the charge on that end of the field. And so you could definitely feel some of that urgency as well. And, those are things that we've got to find a way to manage a bit better and not be in a reactionary position. We got to be, in an aggressive posture ourselves and make sure we're setting the tone.
I feel like we bring this up every week, but Russell Melendez, he's having a great year so far. Had a hand in all 5 of our last goals. Talk about his performance and kind of the season he's been having so far.
Yeah, I've been really happy with Russ so far. I mean, I love working with him. He's such a great young man to coach. He's really gifted athlete, so he's it's an exciting thing to be able to work with guys that can do a lot of things and understand the game. And he always feels like he's just got such a thirst for the information, for new tactics. Give me new skills to work on. Like, what can I get better at? He's a great young man in that regard. And we've moved him around a little bit at times. He's been up top. He's been on the wings. He's playing a lot more behind now. But just giving him a chance to get his hands free, to attack the field the way he wants to. Get shots for in front of the net. He's working on simplifying some mechanics and getting those things off more efficiently. And I think you're seeing that in some better shots, some higher quality shots that are getting on the net. But at the end of the day, I think he's just an athlete that wants to compete. He wants to make plays for his teammates. I don't think he's trying to do anything for himself or track stats or anything. He just, he's a tough competitor and he wants to go hard at the net whenever he can.
Yeah, and Coach, to kind of tack onto that, along with Russ, Matt Collison, again, a big game and having a great year. Obviously, those are kind of our two biggest knowns. How are they producing at such a high clip? Obviously, with defenses focusing on them pretty strongly.
I think for starters, we're trying not to focus off on those guys off the initiation. We get them the ball when we can, but if we start everything with them or if we make it all about them, I think it overemphasizes what the impact they can have is. But if your job is just to move the ball, is to play the backside the right way, is stay inside of our motion and execute selflessly. I think there's a lot of opportunity for those guys probably to call their own number more than they do. But, having a selfless component where you're there just to move the ball, you're not just trying to hunt assists. I think there were some really good examples of that. Matt Collison at one point was dodging the faceoff guy, and he drew a slide, and he had that ball out of his stick before the slide guy got to him. And I think a lot of guys, digging in against the faceoff guy who gets stuck on that end of the field, are going to think, I got big eyes, I'm getting to the net, I'm doing my thing. And he got the ball right off of movement, attacked with some urgency, and then right away, as soon as he saw that slide, he dumped it to the next guy. And I thought we were executing in that regard on the offensive end, with a good mentality that this is, there's some better looks out there. There's some guys that will fill the space and get those shots off. And if they don't slide, I'll get to the net. But for the most part, like we just got to keep moving the ball. We'll find those shots.
Definitely. And, kind of a little bit of a lesser known, freshman Sean Krogan, first few games was getting some looks, and you felt like it was only a matter of time before one kind of dropped for him. He gets his first goal this past weekend. I'm sure that was a pretty big moment for him, as a freshman and building some confidence.
Yeah, it was really cool. The energy on the sideline. Obviously, when guys get, score a big goal, it's always awesome. But when a kid gets his first one, and he's earned his way into the lineup, and I thought he had been playing well at times. He had some tough days early. He struggled at one of the games earlier, but he's a freshman and he's finding his way. But he's a tough kid. He's got a good pop on the shot. He can get that thing off. And so, to see that ball go in the net, I felt great for him. I think a lot of the guys did too. It was a matter of time till one of them fell, like you said. But for that to be a first goal in your career, I think that's a really cool memory, because that was a big goal. I think he definitely earned that one. So hopefully he built some confidence from that and continues to fill it up for us.
Definitely got some style points on that one too, with the kind of roll and leaving his short stick in the dust there on the wing.
Yeah, it was cool.
Hey, Coach, so kind of high scoring game, and a ton of faceoffs, and Logan Callahan was pretty much the only man out there with a career high 27 of them. The guy he was going against, one of the better guys in the country, he got off to a hot start. What adjustments did you guys make, whether on the wing or kind of at the X? Because Logan seemed to kind of pick up some things and get the momentum rolling there.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've seen some evidence of Logan, finding a little bit of a groove and, maybe figuring out the timing on the whistle, or maybe figuring out his opponent. It's a kid that he knows from back home pretty well. So there's a good, connection and competition between those guys. I think they certainly have some familiarity there. But we also knew that position was going to come down to probably the two guys at the X. It didn't get to the wings very much. Both guys on our side and their side were looking to pick it up for themselves. And so, I think Logan, he violates on the opening faceoff and then missed a couple early. But, ultimately I thought, he did what he normally does, is that he just kind of digs in. He finds a way to get, a few in a row and find some timing on there so he can get the exits done and get that ball off the ground. I would probably say that, overall we ended up in the minus category on our efficiency rating. I think we won 50% of the faceoffs, but we lost a few off the ground that we picked up a possession and then gave it back to them. And so I think our biggest lesson there was we just got to be a little bit tougher in the middle of the field, because that was an athletic and aggressive group, and they ride you hard, and they pressed us on some of those loose balls. We knew they were going to jump him and get right to his hands, because he's not the fastest kid in the world, but I think we just need to find better outlets and have a little more composure when we pick those ground balls up, because we could have used a few more of those possessions for sure.
Yeah, I like the efficiency, because I mean, obviously faceoffs is a pretty misleading stat. So really got to count it until it gets into your offensive zone.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do that. I mean, you can win 90% of the faceoffs, but if you have to win every one of them backwards and clear the ball against the 10-man, and you only clear the ball 50% against the 10-man, you didn't win 90% of the faceoffs, however you stat it. So we kind of build it like you just referenced the same way with an efficiency rating that you know is just reliant on whether that ball gets to the offense or not. If we get a shot off, if we get it to the offense and release the pressure, then that's a win. But picking the ball up off the ground, having them check it out of our stick and then pick it back up, that's not a win for us.
Yep.
Coach, I think you can attest to this, but I feel like sometimes we learn more about ourselves after a loss than we do a win. What do you feel like were some things that we learned or took away from this past weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way to say it. I think we're always going to say that we win or we learn, but you can learn a lot from a win. You just really you get exposed. There's a lot of things that are emphasized and highlighted, and there was a few things. I mean, the obvious one that we've already touched on was that we got to start faster. We got to have a more aggressive posture there earlier. I was pleased with the way the offense started the game. Really delivering a quality first possession. It took a little while to find the right look, but when we did, we got topside, we scored. Really valuing the ball in those situations. But I also think that when you're pitting two top 10, top 5 teams against each other, a lot of it's going to come down to execution. A lot of it's going to come down to how those little plays are made, or how consistently are we making those, or are we picking up that last ground ball instead of them, or making the big play or the save. That really comes from just a simple fundamental execution. And so a lot of the message in the locker room after that was just about the details of what we're doing. We didn't come out as hard, and even if we made plays throughout the game, even if we outground balled them, even if we found the right matchup at times to go after, like when we're getting an open shot, we got to hit those shots. Like we can't have empty possessions, or we got to get close that approach all the way out so that the hands aren't free, and then that shot's not open for them to skip to. And so just little things like that I thought was a great mechanism for learning there, that it's highlighted with those plays. It might not have been as apparent if we win. And so you don't want to take your foot off the gas when you win. You want to make sure that you're emphasizing and highlighting all those details anyway. But at a loss, I mean, it's just handed to you. It's shown right in your face.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for the insight there, Coach. Before we look ahead to Virginia, we're going to introduce our newest feature of the We Want More Vodcast, our player-on-player interview. Today, we will be co-captain Dylan Bauer, who was able to catch up with freshman short stick defensive midi Reese DiCicco. Let's take a look at those guys.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dylan Bauer, a graduate student on the 2025 Johns Hopkins men's lacrosse team. I play offensive midfield, and I'm also a co-captain. I'm super excited to be part of the We Want More Vodcast, and we are introducing a new feature this week where players will spend some time interviewing other players so our fans can get to know some of the guys on the squad. Today, I'm joined by freshman short stick defensive midfielder Reese DiCicco, aka Cheeks, aka R-Dog, and the list goes on. Reese, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Dylan. Looking forward to it.
Let's do it. Well, let's just start simple and have you introduce yourself. Tell us about where you're from and a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so as Dylan said, my name's Reese DiCicco. I'm from Guelph, Ontario. I'm the youngest in my family, out of all my cousins as well. I have an older brother and an older sister. They both played collegiate sports. My brother at Ohio State played lacrosse, and then my sister played hockey back in Canada. But yeah, just growing up, it was always kind of a competitive environment. And usually I was the one that was always getting picked on as the youngest.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you said your brother played at Ohio State. He's playing in the NLL right now. Is that right?
Yeah, so he plays for the San Diego Seals in the NLL. He's doing graduate school at Stanford. So he's out there in California for all of the school year. But yeah, he's excellent lacrosse player, and kind of a guy that I looked up to growing up. Him being my older brother, he was a great role model for me, and like taught me all about hard work and discipline and everything that it takes to get to the next level. So a whole lot to him.
Cool. So obviously a pretty competitive household. What's one game or video game that you know you can take your brother in?
I mean, I was always better than my brother at video games. So growing up, when we would play NHL, I'd always win, and I knew that made him mad. But he definitely got me growing up when we were playing mini stick hockey and mini stick lacrosse in the basement.
Awesome. All right. So you played high school at Lawrenceville. Why don't you tell us a little about what attracted you to Johns Hopkins and why you're here now?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always kind of been attracted to Johns Hopkins. It was kind of my first memory of NCAA lacrosse growing up as a kid was kind of watching Johns Hopkins highlights and seeing Homewood Field. And then kind of as I got more into it in the recruiting process, Johns Hopkins kind of had everything I wanted in terms of academics, athletics, and a good balance of social life as well. I think all three of those things kind of factored into my decision. And then as well, like those guys from Lawrenceville, I mean, they spoke great things about it when I talked to them during that process. And I trust those guys and their judgments. And I mean, they're some of my best friends. So um, they kind of help factor into that decision.
Gotcha. Well, that segues us into my next question. So you're one of six guys on the team from Lawrenceville. It feels like you're one of a million. But could you just talk a little bit about that dynamic? You already talked about the recruiting process, but maybe talk about how the comfort level it provided you to have so many guys on the team that you already knew coming in here. Maybe you could speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Lawrenceville definitely helped so much, and knowing those guys for sure. I mean, they helped my transition to Lawrenceville back when I was a sophomore in high school, coming from all the way in Ontario down to New Jersey. And those guys just helped me feel comfortable at school in lacrosse, kind of taught me a lot about the field game, as well as my two coaches there, Coach Posner and Coach Measure. I mean, I owe a lot to them. They kind of helped me out and paved the way for me to be successful. And then that comfort aspect as well, like going to school here, like knowing guys and knowing they had my back, it definitely helped a lot coming in.
Gotcha. Well, let's close the yearbook there, our dog. Now that you are here and the season is going on, you've been able to make an early impact, which has been super exciting to watch. You've been killing it on the field. Tell us a little bit about the transition from high school to college lacrosse and how that's been for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a transition. Everyone here in the college game is bigger, faster, stronger, um, which I didn't see a lot of at high school. But again, as I kind of previously mentioned, the way Coach Posner and Coach Measer run Lawrenceville, it's pretty similar to a college program. We practice all throughout the fall and the winter, gearing into our spring season. And I mean, they taught me a lot about the field game as well. Like being from Canada, I didn't know too much about it. Um, and then playing those 3 years of high school across in the United States definitely helped my transition here.
Gotcha. Well, you've played in some big games so far, and we definitely have another one coming up this week with the 99th Hopkins Virginia game. How does it feel to be a part of some of the greatest rivalries in college lacrosse?
Yeah, I mean that kind of ties back into the question about like why I came to Johns Hopkins and why I chose Johns Hopkins. I mean, I feel like that's a major reason why you come here is for the history and the legacy. Um, those games are every week for us almost is playing big games, Big Ten games and like historic rivalry games. So um, again, playing in that game, I'm super excited for Saturday. Um, and I feel that's a huge reason I came here is to play in games like that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's segue into a little bit more about the squad. Um, did you have any upperclassmen of note take you under their wing when you arrived on campus? And if so, what did that mean to you and what did they kind of do for you?
Yeah, Dylan, I would say yourself. I mean, when I came here, you were one of the first guys that I was introduced to. You kind of took me under your wing, like gave me some guidance and stuff. I mean, those five guys from Lawrenceville that were previously here definitely helped a bunch. Eric McDonald and Jack Montfort for sure, both guys that play my position, have a ton of experience. And those were guys that took me under their wing and helped me athletically and both academically. So really grateful for those guys, as well as so many others. For sure, we're a huge team, and everyone does their part for sure in helping the freshmen out.
Hard to choose one for sure. Well, who do you think is the funniest guy on our squad?
Funniest, I got to go with Steve Charlie Eiler for sure. It's hilarious.
He's definitely up there for me too. All right. Well, who and if anyone would you let date your sister on the team, and who would you not let date your sister on this team?
I would let no one on the team date my sister.
All right, we're gonna skip that one. If you could play O mid and you could choose the next two guys on your line, who would you play with?
I'll go off the board and I'll go with 45 Eric McDonald on the right side. Uh, let's see. And then I'll go Chuck Ross in between us, making it all Canadian line.
Gotcha. That's a good line right there. Well, I know you are a part of a very special group called the Have-Nots. Could you explain to the people a little bit more about what that means and who would you say is the leader of that crew?
Yeah, so the have-nots are kind of what we refer the short stick D middies here at Hopkins. And I mean that term just kind of means like we get no glory. There's no stats for D middies. It's kind of the grittiest position in lacrosse. And so the have-nots kind of embody that and embrace that. And for the leader, I think I'll go with Eric McDonald as well. He was he embraces that probably the most out of anyone.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So Coach K is without a doubt the best in the business when it comes to being a defensive coach and honestly just a leader in general. How's it been for him to be able to coach you and what are you kind of taking away with you so far? I know it's early, but definitely had a huge impact.
I mean, yeah, Coach K is unbelievable. The energy that he brings to practice every day is unmatchable and unreplaceable. And I've learned so much from him. He's truly like one of the greatest minds in the game. Um, and kind of the way he delivers things, he knows like the perfect blend of kind of when to get on you and when to like give you a hug and be more supportive. So I think he's great.
All right, last two questions here. I know you have aspirations of being a lawyer someday. Who on the team would you want in your corner in court if you had to choose somebody to be your lawyer?
I'll go with a guy that's gonna also trying to be a faux or Sam Teachout.
That's a good
So
one.
I feel like we share a couple laughs there too.
Definitely. All right, last question. If you could choose to live anywhere in the world and work your dream job, where would it be and what would you do?
I would be a sports agent, and I would live in Italy, where my family's from.
Awesome. Well, Reese, I appreciate you. That was awesome. We're looking forward to more of these in the coming weeks. I hope you guys enjoyed it and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dylan.
All right, folks, welcome back. It was cool to kind of see that conversation and the impact of one of our freshmen there. Coach, quick thoughts on Reese and kind of the season he's been having so far.
He's doing a great job so far. Really pleased with Reese. He's a great teammate, tough competitor. Seems to have an aptitude for the defense already. Coach is not an easy guy to understand that system or play for right away. Freshmen don't usually grasp that stuff early on because it's a lot of material and it comes at you fast. And he's got high expectations, but Reese seems to have the demeanor for it. Tough man. And he makes plays. I think one of the things that really jumps out, and I maybe I reference this when I talk about freshmen playing earlier, is that composure is usually one of the difference makers to get on the field early. I mean, a lot of young guys have some skills and have the ability to make a dent in the lineup or show that they have the skills to make a play on the game field, but it's hard to do that consistently. And having the demeanor and the composure as a young man is definitely a unique characteristic.
That's great. Hey, Coach, another rivalry game against the Blue Blood, not starting off the season as they had hoped, but the cupboard's never bare in Charlottesville. What are you seeing from them in this will be the 99th meeting between the two schools. It's our second longest tenured rivalry. What are you seeing from Virginia on film so far this year? Obviously they lost some big names, but still have some knowns and athletic all over the field.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they played a great game last week, and I don't think that's going to be a surprise if I'm mentioning that at all. And I also don't think that I'm coming out of left field by saying I don't expect to see that version of them again this week. This is a rivalry game for them as well. they ended our season last year, so there's no doubt a fire built in there and a competitive edge to it. But you already said it. The cupboard is never bare there. I don't know who graduates, but it's never bare. I mean, they had some big pieces and some really great players, but they still do. And if those guys didn't play great last weekend, I'm not going to expect that they're going to have another bad week. So, they are athletic. They are highly skilled. They are always a well-coached team. They will come out on fire. They will give us hell in every possible, avenue that they can. So I'm not expecting an easy road in any capacity.
Absolutely. The recent trend here with Hop Virginia seems to be kind of those one goal games. That's nothing new, right? 13 out of the last 31 games have been one goal games. And then since 2012, we've had 6 overtime games. So, anticipating another pretty tight game here. What are the guys thinking going into this weekend?
I mean, I know they're going to be hungry. Coming off a loss for us is going to be a motivating factor as well. Playing a team that, we lost to at the end of last season is going to be motivating for us. Playing the Virginia game at home is always going to be motivating for us. But, we really need to just stay focused on, like I talked about earlier, some fundamental execution, some simple details. We need to come out strong. We need to play tough in the middle of the field. We need to play smart when we have the ball. And when we don't, we need to work our ass off to defend our end of the field so that we can clear that thing. They got a tough ride. They're gonna be all over the field. They got a lot of length that they can bring up into the midfield and stress you when you're bumping back and forth trying to move that ball upfield. They have a really impressive group on the offensive end of the field of skilled athletic young men. So our guys need to be dialed in. They need to be hungry. But one play at a time, and we start with the first ground ball.
Great. And coach, we're going to have Jake Byrne join us this week for the Alumni Spotlight. Obviously played a huge role for our team from 2004 through 2007 in 2 championships. And in particularly the 05 semifinal against Virginia, scoring the tying goal with 1.4 seconds left. Do you have any recollection of that game? And if so, what are some of your thoughts with that game particularly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wasn't a part of the Hopkins family at that point. I was just watching as an observer and a lacrosse fan, at the time. But a wild game and a really amazing goal to score. And then obviously being here and being a part of this program now, and seeing how big of an impact that has on the program and the history of what we do, and certainly our rivalry against this team and things like that. I mean, it's just it was awesome, the magnitude of what he did at that point. I got a chance to play golf with him 2 years ago at the alumni outing, and that was really cool just to spend some of the time there and get to know him as an alum and as a supporter of the program. But I think it's awesome that he's coming on and is a spotlight, and I think he's a great representation of a Hopkins man, of a Blue Jay, scoring big goals, making plays, and bringing the championship back to Homewood.
Yeah, and I'll touch on 2 things. One is just, I mean, Mother Nature has a plan, and the timing of that storm could not have worked any better for us, because man, we were up early, and then something happened where Virginia just took all of the momentum, and if that delay didn't happen, we would have been run off the field and lost by 7-8 goals. So that was crazy. And then the second thing was when I got scored on by Matt Ward with 12 seconds left. I had a senior laden defense in front of me, and I'm like, oh God, guys, I'm so sorry. And I distinctly remember Chris Watson coming up to me, goes, "Hey, keep your head up. We're gonna go win this faceoff and score. We'll get them in overtime." And I'm like, yeah, all right, Waddy. But I mean, he believed, and I think that was just a special moment for me as a sophomore to hear that from our seniors who I thought I had let down, and that goes back to the family of the Hopkins.
No doubt. I think that's awesome. Yeah, saw Waddy here, just the other day, and no surprise that you get that type of composure and that type of leadership from a guy like him. You got to believe it to start it, and if that's where it ends up going, then a lot of it's coming from that mentality, that focus. So it's awesome to see. It's awesome as an example for our guys to learn from and understand that that's your destiny that you're putting out on the field there.
Yeah. And then, Coach, one last thing about Virginia. What does the Doyle Smith Cup mean to both teams, and especially coming home with it from Charlottesville last year?
Yeah, it was awesome to bring that home. I mean, it's been a obviously a long-standing rivalry. You said 99 times, or this is the 99th matchup. They've been such a good team for so long. This has been a tough competition for the last few years. Bringing that thing home, I think the guys took a lot of pride in that. It's displayed, right out in the main lobby at Cordish Lacrosse Center, and I think the guys really take a lot of pride in this rivalry. But this is a special game. There's a lot of big games on our schedule. We try not to overemphasize that rivalry too much, but it's impossible to look past this one. We probably more than anything had to tell guys to stay focused on what they're doing the last few weeks so that they didn't look ahead to this one. But I think this one will definitely have some fire to it.
Awesome, Coach. Well, thank you for your time. Always great to get some insight for you. Coming up, we have Jake Byrne joining us for the Alumni Spotlight. For those of you may remember, Jake Byrne scored the tying goal against Virginia in the semifinals back in 2005. So we're excited to have him on and chat with him a little bit.
Thanks, Coach. Best of luck this weekend.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Yep.
He needs surgery in the next 10 days.
Felt the shooting pain in my knee.
Oh, I don't know what I did, but I did something. I stepped off to the side again and it buckled.
The plan is to get you to run again. The plan is to get you back to where you were. We can fix this.
To know that I could be back out there.
I'm way better now than I was pre-surgery.
Welcome to Johns Hopkins.
Welcome back to the We Want More Vodcast. This week's Alumni Spotlight, 2007 graduate, number 25, good friend and former teammate, Jake Byrne. Jake, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So we graduated in 07, and it's kind of February 2025. What are you doing now? And kind of tell us about your journey from Homewood Field to being a corporate attorney.
Well, now I'm working in the commercial real estate group at Venable here in the Baltimore office. And so, that for us, that's sort of really anything involved with real estate, from land use to joint venture work to acquisitions and sales. So, obviously we were all political science majors back at Hopkins. We tended to avoid some of the higher learning. But, that background certainly helps a little bit. So we obviously did a little bit of medical sales beforehand. So, and being on the, doing the alumni mentorship and some of those pods, I think I have a pretty good background to sort of, relay to the guys that, you're going to find it somehow. And I think that sort of definitely applies to me.
That's great. So some people kind of get into law right after school, straight into law school. You did a little gap, worked in other jobs, medical sales, amongst other things. Kind of what did you learn from those experiences, or really what made you want to kind of step into the legal world when you did?
Bet you can relate to this, but when you started to have some success in medical sales, you're presenting contracts and people are saying, what does this contract say? And I would have to sort of stop and go, I don't know what it says, right? I mean, I can tell you what the numbers say, but this is what the contract means. And my grandfather was an attorney. My mom was a paralegal. So I had some familiarity with the law. And so that's really what piqued my interest. But I mean, another thing was, sort of the timing worked out. I married my college sweetheart, who also played on the women's team, Alex Nolan. And at the time she was in medical school. So it just lined up with, you're going to medical school. Why not, both of us go back to school for a little bit.
Yeah, Jake, we love kind of hearing what our alumni are up to. Obviously, all the incredible things that they're doing. Can you tell us a little bit like how your time at Homewood prepared you for what you're doing now?
Well, I mean, I think it's really, you can sort of tell the people who had, in my line of work, who had pressure put on them, and sort of your ability to handle that. And I think that's sort of an invaluable trait to have, is to sort of, when you can tell everyone else is getting, a little anxious or a little amped up about an issue that we're dealing with, it's, we're going to figure it out, right? It's, a little bit of perspective too, I think. We've certainly, as a team, we went through some really great times and some tough times. And so you always know that, as long as, you're not left on an island, even in the legal world, most people would think of it as being sort of you hear the term like solo practitioner, but there's always a team around you. So if you're able to really work within a team and sort of figure out how to bring people together, and I should mention I'm a transactional attorney, right? So no, I don't go into court. I don't think I have the personality for that. But for the most part, it's everyone's trying to get to a goal, right? And so if you have the mindset, which we certainly learned at Hopkins, of let's move the whole group towards that goal. And I think that's been one of the biggest ones. And the other ones, I think the last one is sort of learning how to enjoy hard work, or you certainly have tasks that you don't enjoy, but you can sort of pick out the positives that will come from the hardship, right? You'll sort of be able to see that, if you're able to focus and put your mind to it, you'll be all the better for it.
Yeah, that's a great point, and kind of go into battle with your work brothers, with your team brothers, makes it more fun. You guys can kind of lean on each other, and then sharing the joy at the end of the tunnel, when you see that light, is always better to share amongst pals.
Absolutely.
So big game this week versus Virginia. I know you know a couple things about that rivalry, but before we get going in that, just for those that don't know, your brother Matt Hahn is one of the all-time greats at University of Maryland, an attackman there, who I think held the scoring record until Joe Walters recently broke it. How did you end up at Hopkins and not in College Park?
Well, it goes back to my brother and I also went to rival high schools. So he went to Georgetown Prep, I went to Landon. So it was sort of already, we had been through that aspect. And I'll also throw in my grandfather and uncle played at Maryland too. So it was really, I think a major change. Not to get into it too much, but I think the generation of Maryland players, when my brother played, and the coaching staff, and that whole dynamic was a little different than when we were coming out.
Right.
So that made it a bit easier. If I was sort of going away from, like a coach that coached my brother, that would have been a lot different. But I mean, frankly, I think my mom I think my brother had opportunities to play at maybe an Ivy, and she said, well, you're going to be happy at Maryland, so go there. And so when it came time for me, it was definitely, look, Hopkins is a place you can get an education. So really pushed that. And also just a bit of a different feel for me in terms of Hopkins. I mean, it's lacrosse is the focus, not a huge campus. I still tell the story to the younger guys that when we went on our visit, I think Chris Watson was, the guys were talking about practice even in the fall, and I think Chris was deciding, I'm not going to go out tonight, or because coach got after me for something. It's like, all right, well, these guys really want to win, and I didn't get that sense from some of the other programs, and so to me it was important to have guys that, not over the top, but they want to win. There's certainly more to life, but it's a focus, and sort of what's the point of going someplace if it's really sort of an afterthought.
Awesome. Well, Jake, 20th anniversary of that legendary 2005 game against Virginia. If you could take us back to that day, what was going through your mind? You know, number one seed, semifinal game against Virginia. What was that like?
I mean, it was the atmosphere was fantastic. I mean, the only thing that would rival that I think was our '07 title game. But there's so much anticipation. And arguably our '04 team was more talented. I know that we had like Huntley and Rabel and Pies and those guys, but our '04 team is just fantastic. But '05, there really was, I think I can't remember who we played in the first round, but then we had a quarterfinal against Massachusetts, and that wasn't close. And we're on a roll, and it was sort of, we had Virginia to play, and that game, was just, I don't know whether it's wild or bizarre or what you want to call it, but we had the weather delay.
Thank God we had that weather
Yeah,
delay.
yeah, and I kind of, for all the things that are remembered. I mean, there's one play where I think we had a fast break, and I tried to throw it down to Pete, and I threw it away. It was like, just shoot the ball. So it's almost like, even now I think about it, like I was tight at this point because otherwise I would have just shot it. But I think it was pretty, just a tight game to go the whole way. And then I have the image in my head of, I can't remember who was their inside guy at that point, but was trying to like rally the crowd,
Yeah,
and
I think Matt Ward maybe.
yeah, it could have been Matt, but just sort of like, this is like, what's happening. And then that lightning delay came through, and I remember getting really cold, um, and
Wrappers and Gatorade
yeah.
bottles just literally flying everywhere. And then there was the delay, and they had picked up the momentum, so that timing could not have worked out better for us. And I remember distinctly being in the locker room, and everyone was just like dead silent. Like, what are we gonna do? We just gave up 4 goals in a row. Like, this team is absolutely smoking us right now. And there was this like sense of like, should I say something? Should I just wait? Yeah. And I remember you getting up to the stereo, blasting some either Madonna or Mariah Carey, and then everyone just got so loose, and you could see that when we went back out on the field, we were a different team there.
I mean, I can't remember what I put on either. I think Greg Ramey might have been like, "That's a good thought, but not that song. Like, let's pick something else up." But like, basically, like, yeah, you're right. Let's just get over it, right? Um, but it's all just, it's not that it's been 20 years, but even an hour later, if you ask me what happened, it's like, I don't know. I think I remember making the comment of like, what were you thinking when Greg passed the ball? It's like, well, don't drop the ball. Like, I
Right.
don't know.
No time to think there.
No, no. I mean, it's just I mean, it's clearly like a dream for me, right? I mean, every kid, whether it's basketball or whatever, or baseball, or, the bottom of the ninth, all of that. And, it's just a really cool thing. But I mean, the big, obviously, the other little nitbit there is, obviously Matt Ward and I went to the same high school.
That's right.
So Matt scores, and I think Brendan was covering him, or I think Brendan sort of, always, I don't know. I don't know whether he wants us to feel bad for him or whatever, but but so Matt scores, and then obviously the decision making in terms of the face off, and because Greg, love Greg. That's obviously his personality. I wasn't involved. I didn't hear what went on, but I think I was told sort of, Greg said, "Coach, I'm going to take this face off," and Coach just said, "Okay, fine,"
Right.
which
He
is a very
just
Pizer
ran
thing.
out there.
Yeah, very Pizer thing. But they put a shorty on me because, frankly, that's what you should do, for the most part. But the fact that they did that and then didn't try to really win the face off, right? I mean, that was the other sort of interesting thing. So, a lot went into it. And to score left-handed on Kip, at that angle, it's like, what are you going to do? But I feel like we should have won the game. Obviously otherwise, right? But yeah, it was great. And then to have Benson, sort of finish that off was just perfect.
Perfect, perfect. So we talked about stuff that was cool. What was not cool was Dom calling a stick check on you after you tied the game. What was going? I mean, you are coming from someone who lived with you. I know how you are with your sticks. There had been some weather, some rain, maybe it bagged out a little bit. What were you thinking during, I mean, what seemed like an eternity? It was probably like 3 minutes. It seemed like it was a 20-minute stoppage there. Um, what was going through your mind?
Well, I don't know if you remember this, Jess, but in that game, and I probably switched sticks too many times, but I played with the old STX hype.
Shout
And
out STX.
yeah, sorry. But it wasn't your traditional stick. Like it wasn't something you look at and you're like, okay, this is easy. Like it was basically like, what? I don't know what to do with this. And I did that because Connor Ford played with it.
That's
I was
right.
like, man, this kid, he lit it up. He loves it. He's like, this is the best stick you'd ever use. So I was like, I'm sold. But anyway, so I was thinking that I was like, is this gonna? And I was the only player probably in college using that stick. Um, and and so I had that thought. I had the thought of, well, Ward's stick was definitely bagged out. Like, there's no way. But I mean, I will say, not to give any tricks away. I mean, I'll say the ref absolutely sort of gave me one of those when he handed me the stick back and said it was fine. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine having such a moment overturned for something that I think the ball would come out. But I mean, like, wasn't nervous, but there's always that little who I don't know who the ref was, but
Right. What if?
who
What if?
what it just exactly. So and you're right. I mean, it would have been wet and bagged out and all that, but I mean that would have been a total shame. And obviously, coach had some words probably on the sideline and all that. So I'm just lucky that all turned out all right.
And Jay, I was telling Jesse before this, I remember watching that game as a young kid, and that was kind of the first moment that I was like, I want to go to Hopkins. Like that's my dream is to play lacrosse there, be on the big stage, and I want to ask you, like, what are some of your fondest memories of your times at Homewood?
Oh man. I mean, there's so many. There's what I would call our gathering after we lost to Carolina my senior year, which was sort of like a big exhale because we had a tough road through the first couple games. And I think it was another like our class, which was pretty unique. Our senior year, our class that year was sandwiched around. You had the class before us with like 15 guys, the class behind us with about 15 guys, all with lots of big studs in there. And I remember, coach pinning to our locker our freshman year, like, here's a Hopkins class that essentially isn't expected to do anything. And then here we are, and a bunch of us played a key role my senior year. And obviously we got to play in the 100th Maryland game, which was, looking back on it now, I mean, how special is that? I mean, I was talking with Kevin Boland, who actually turns out is teaching my son at Gilman this year. So that's
That's great.
it's awesome. But so we were just reminiscing about that. But we had such a unique, I think time there. But obviously still remember, coach yelling out one-on-ones and just going, oh man. All sort of like the traditional things where you're like, I miss it, but I don't miss it that much. But lots of great bus trips, just really good guys. The face-offs at Friday practice. Just again, we had this really good dynamic, I think, of, we had a coaching staff that all played together or, we're from Hopkins and we're friends. And then to sort of see how they balanced themselves against, I wouldn't say we had a overly serious team, but we certainly had guys that, were stepping up and pushing other people, and making sure that everyone was working towards that goal. And so, it's just, I can't thank, lucky stars to be able to go to Hopkins and to have the experience that I had.
Yeah, and such a great balance of kind of serious and joking or playful, but for the most part, like 95% of those guys that we played with could kind of flip that switch when it needed to be. And that's what I thought. I mean, we talk about it kind of on this vodcast. We talk about it at Hopkins gatherings, and I know it's a theme within the team and the program is about family. And I think that alludes to what you said about our coaching staff and us guys as a family. We could go into the trenches together. We could also joke and play together. But when it was time to get serious and kind of hunker down and needed to get stuff done, we absolutely got it done.
Yeah, I mean, one little, I'll never forget when we played Duke. I guess it was in '05. We went to overtime, and like Tom Garvey, who is just a gem, like looks at me. He's like, just very like, you just don't screw it up. It's like, all right, Tom, thanks. Like I very well could, but thanks.
Right.
But it's just that.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Well, hey, thank you so much. Know you're a very busy guy. Thanks for taking some time to talk to us and tell the guys and those listeners about what you're doing now and kind of where you are and the path that led you to a career in law. Thanks for being a great supporter of the program, and we hope to see you soon and definitely at homecoming when they honor our 2005 team.
So thanks, guys.